Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader. And so we're going to do something that's a little different when we do our standalones. Normally, I'll do like a book one of a series that can be read individually, but I'm going to be a little different and we're going to jump to book three. So this is from the Dirty series by author Amelia Wilde. And book three is called Dirty Rogue. We meet Quinn Campbell, and she has just relocated from Colorado to New York City. And she's just landed at the airport. She is headed to her friend Carolyn's apartment where she's going to be staying. And so she's got to get a cab, and the guy she gets is like really greasy and creepy. And we get a little bit more information about our girl Quinn, and we find out that she was with a guy named Derek, and for a whole year he was cheating on her with her best friend. Totally can see why she wants a change of scenery. Makes perfect sense. So the taxi driver is just making all kind of leery comments and stuff, and she's just like, you know what, when I get a chance, I'm gonna bolt out of here. He's just giving her major creep vibes. So she gets a phone call from her real estate agent, Sherry, and Sherry's like, we got a problem. She thought, okay, the house is perfectly ready to sell, so what could possibly be the issue? Well, the pipes in the basement burst. And she's like, well, I'll just call someone locally so they can get it done, get the pipes fixed. Well, the driver, of course, hears her conversation. He's all like, yeah, I can fix your pipes right now. So that's when she's like, nah, I'm done. So she gets out of the car. She's like 5 blocks, away from the apartment. She's like, you know what? At this point, I walk. Mm-mm. So she gets out. And the reason she's able to get out is because she was like, if you don't let me out, I'm going to call the police. So he, of course, lets her out, and she hauls ass with this big ass suitcase. But she knows she's not where she needs to be, but at this point, again, it could be worse, right? She doesn't know what that driver was going to do. He just creeped her out too bad, and I can totally understand that. At that point, it's like, okay, you know what? I'll just fucking walk. If it's 10 blocks, I will just walk. We then meet Christian Pierce, and he's at this gala event. His father is Harlan Pierce. He runs Pierce Industries, and this party is to announce his promotion. We get a little bit information about Christian. He's all about having fun, partying, doesn't do commitments. 3 dates tops is what he gives a woman. After that, he's done. Can't let anyone get too close, and that's how he rolls. So there's a woman at the party named Melody. She's circling around him. There's also a woman named Angela that's been texting him, but he's already done the 3 dates, screwed her 3 times, and so she's not an option anymore. So there's a place called Purple Swan, which is like this really hip place, and he's either going to go there after this or he's just going to take Melody back to his place and screw her. So his father makes the announcement. He's going to be senior vice president of Pierce Industries. And so he goes up there, makes his super quick speech, and he's been waiting for this announcement to happen so he can get the hell out of here. So he says to his dad, I'll do my best to make you proud, all that type of stuff. He gets the hell out of Dodge. But we also find out that the dad is like him. Like, for the, past 10, probably longer than that, his father is like super, playboy, that type of thing. And so I'm like, okay, well, that's probably why they get along so well. We switch back to Quinn. She is hauling this big ass suitcase through the city. It has wheels. And as she's going, she's looking at different shops. And it's like, okay, these could possibly be some really nice places for her to come back and of course, visit. We find out that she works for a PR company called HRM. Holden something management. Yeah, because I don't remember what the R stands for. But she is a PR specialist. And she has been for a long time. And so she was able to transfer here because she had been working with the company back in Colorado for a long time. And so, of course, after what went down with Derek, they transferred her, no problem. She has only been to New York once before. So, I mean, it is pretty drastic to do this. Like, I do understand you need a new scenery. I do understand you want to be extremely far away from such betrayal and feeling like, you know what, I just want to start over. I do understand that. I do. Um, and it also helps. It's not like she was going there and she doesn't have anyone. You know, her friend Carolyn is lives there, so that makes it pretty good for her. So she's walking and she's at the point where she's crossing the road and the wheel of the suitcase gets stuck in the asphalt. She's pulling, nothing's happening. And then here comes this SUV barreling down and she tries to give it one more good pull, but to no avail. She had to jump out of the way. Unfortunately, the suitcase gets hit. Her belongings are all in the street. People look at her with pity for a moment, but nobody stops. So now she's got to wait for the cars to stop before she can run out there and salvage what she can. And when she turns around, she sees the most beautiful blue eyes she has ever seen, and the girl almost forgets about the damn suitcase. We switch back to Christian and we find out he saw the whole thing happen. He goes over to her. Of course, he's struck by her beauty from the get go. And he could just see, he just thought she was the most beautiful person ever. She just had on yoga pants, a tank top, a ball on the top of her head, a big bun, you know, no makeup. But to him, she was absolutely stunning. And so he goes over, he winds up helping her um, get her stuff. And they made about 3 trips. And she just kind of laughs and says, well, I guess that's a way to welcome me to the city, you know? And he says, well, you know, yep, welcome to New York City, you know? So she's able to put everything back in the suitcase. The zipper's busted, but she's able to take her pantyhose and like wrap it around so that way it'll hold the stuff in there. He had also made a comment before he helped her pick up the stuff. I forgot to mention this. He was like, you know, I can have someone come, you know, and get this for you later. And she was just kind of like, oh my gosh, don't tell me you're one of those rich guys. And he's like, yeah, matter of fact, I kind of am, you know, like a rich guy has someone do everything, a person for everything. And then after that, he helped her get her stuff. So then he also offered her a ride, and she says, I'm only like a block away from my new place, so it's okay. And so they shake hands, and they both, you know, he feels that electricity, and so he doesn't really want to let go of her hand. And she says to him, I'm Quinn Campbell. He says, I'm Christian Pierce. And just like a nice to meet you. And then she walks off and he stares until she's gone out of his sight. And he hasn't felt that in a long time. And the thing that he hasn't felt is regret. And that's what he feels, letting her walk away. We switch back to Quinn's POV and she makes it to the apartment. Now, Carolyn, of course, is like, what the hell happened? You know, because it was raining. She looked a mess. She's like, why didn't you just get a cab? She's like, I did. And he was just like, oh, you know. And so she goes inside. We find out that Carolyn is a trust fund baby. She's got money, like real money. So even though Quinn's not broke, she doesn't have that kind of money that Carolyn has. And so they used to live together back in college. And so they've been friends ever since. And Carolyn used to live with someone named Jessica, but Jessica met someone, a prince of some small country, and now she's living overseas. And so Carolyn really doesn't like to live by herself. And so this was just really a perfect situation. And then it's a really nice apartment. This isn't like some little raggedy shindig. This is a beautiful apartment that she has. Um, she says the master bedroom is like in her house in Colorado is smaller than her room, and she doesn't even have the biggest room in this apartment. So yeah, this is a pretty nice place. So she goes and takes a shower. Carolyn is like, we'll go shopping, we'll replace your stuff, X, Y, and Z. Carolyn laid some clothes out for her so that she could wear. They sit on the couch, they talk. She tells her what happened, and then she said she met this guy named Christian. And Carolyn goes, "Wait a minute, Christian Pierce?" And she's like, "Yeah, you know him?" And so we find out that Carolyn knows him because it's the rich crowd, that she hangs around. And what she didn't tell Carolyn is how it felt looking at him, and how it made her feel. She didn't say anything like that. Just kind of like, yeah, he was really nice. He was kind. And, but being that it's like you meet someone you probably think you'll never see again, and then you find out the person knows them. It's like what feels like a big city is starting to feel kind of small to her right now. So our boy Christian, he's moving into his new office on the 18th floor. This is the next day. He of course cannot get Quinn out of his head. Um, However, tonight he's supposed to go with a group of people, and he's gonna bring Melody with him as his date to the place called the Purple Swan. So again, you gotta remember 3 days max. That's how he rolls, and he's gonna be done with her after that. So here's the dilemma: he can't stop thinking about Quinn, and yet he's got a whole date lined up. But it's kind of, and it's freaking him out because he's not used to this. Like, he's not used to thinking about someone this much. So then his dad comes to his door and says something to him about the old office, because he was looking in the drawers, and he's like, you're not getting sentimental on me. And Christian just goes, nope, bigger and better. And his dad's like, good, that's what I like to hear, good boy. So then he has a thought of how his dad treated his brother. So he had a twin brother named Eli, and I guess he treated his other brother like he walked on water, you know? And that thought is kind of stuck in his head. And we find out that he got a text message from Carolyn that said, why didn't you tell me you met my roommate? And I'm just kind of like, well, first of all, girl, it just happened. Like, give him a minute. And then, but it hits him like a Mack truck, like, oh, shoot, the college friend from Colorado, the suitcase, oh my gosh, that was in Carolyn's neighborhood. Quinn Campbell is her roommate. So that whole time he's thinking, like, I'm never going to see her again, and then to find out, uh, you more than likely will, because she's living with someone that's in your friend group. Quinn wakes up the next morning, her phone's ringing, and of course she's hoping that it could possibly be Mr. Christian. But it's the plumber. And he's calling to let her know situation is a little worse than what they had anticipated. So in her basement, it's now soaked. They turned off the water, but I guess they were supposed to remove something, and now the drywall is screwed up. It's got to be replaced. Carpet's going to either have to be replaced or cleaned. It's a whole lot worse. She's now got to get a contractor. Now she's kind of pissed because Sherry told her, Sherry's the realtor, was just kind of like, listen, if you go ahead and get out, we can get this place staged quickly and we can sell it quickly, you know. But there keeps being issues with the house, and it's pissing her off because it's like it's still tying her to Colorado. But she's determined. She's like, I am not going back there to deal with that. She'll do everything via phone. Like, it'll get fixed that way. So she lets the guy know, listen, I'll reach out. I'll hire a contractor, have someone look into the drywall. She hangs up with him. 30 minutes later, she's out doing some shopping and things, and then afterwards she's going to meet up with Carolyn for sushi. And so she gets a phone call, and it's from a guy named Bennett Walker, who is works at HRM, and he's telling her she has a little mini freak out because she doesn't know what's going on, and this is what has happened. So the reason the Bennett guy was calling is because they've got a new client, high profile, and she came so highly recommended from Colorado that they're now going to bump her up to an executive of reputation management position. It's going to come with a bump in pay as well, which of course will make anyone super excited. And so starting on Monday morning, she's got a new gig. She's jumping in both feet. And so when she gets off the phone, she is close to where Carolyn works, and Carolyn's like, what's going on? She tells her, she's like, oh, we gotta go out to celebrate at the Purple Swan tonight. Our boy Christian has a pounding headache. He's at the Purple Swan. Two of his friends are there, Jeffrey and somebody else. Melody's there. And she is striking in her outfit, but it's just not working for him. And she is trying so hard to get his attention, wanting him to know like she is down to leave like right now. But he's consumed with thoughts of Quinn. And so she of course asked him like, you know, what's going on? Like, you're not even really paying attention to me. So he tries to play it off by giving her a little kiss on the neck or whatever, but he's just not really into her, right? His mind's somewhere else. And so what's so funny is it's crazy how what a day ago, like literally the previous day, he was ready to bang her, ready to do the deed. Or 2 days ago, maybe it was 2 days ago. He's ready to do the deed, and now it's like you're just there, like whatever. It's and I know that must suck for her because she of course was getting that vibe from him at the gala, like that he was down. So it's kind of like, damn, like what is going on? So Carolyn comes up, and behind her is Quinn. And the first thing he says is Quinn Campbell. And she has this little smile on her face. And they sit down, and Melody is gripping the table like she is holding on for dear life. It's now Monday. Quinn is a little anxious because this is her first day. Um, there's going to be this high profile client. She looks great. She is in the office, and we find out that there wasn't a lot of interaction between her and Christian. We get just a little backdrop, which I did like that we did that because I felt like if we had to sit there and read all of the interaction that went on at the club, it probably would have annoyed me a little bit. So I like kind of the throwbacks of the memories of, okay, this is what happened. So there wasn't that much interaction with Christian. They kind of gave each other these looks, but it stayed there. It didn't go beyond that. She noticed the Melody woman. She kind of wondered, like, is this his girl? Like, what's going on? She did hear that he is, a man about town. He likes his women, his different company. And I think the way they said it was he dates like it's going out of style. Okay. So these are reasons that she feels, you know what, I need to stay clear of him anyway. And she wants commitment and honesty. And of course, this doesn't seem like something he would want. So again, the problem is can't get him out of her head. That's the problem. So she's talking to Walker, and he says, everyone calls him his name's Bennett Walker, but he says everyone calls him Walker. She's about to go meet with the client. They're about to dive in head first. And she's nervous, but she's like, you know what? I'm ready. I can do this. Part of her wanting to sell that house in Colorado so bad, that's her safety net, right? If this doesn't work out, I got a safety net. And she kind of wants to take that away from herself. Because normally there's a boyfriend or a fiance, which is what Derek was, but it's like Now, if this doesn't work, she's screwed. But I think for her, you take away the safety net, it now forces her, I've got to thrive. Like, there's no other choice. I've got to thrive. So that it's a good thing. It's a scary thing. You know, everyone can't do that, but she's got some balls. I like it. We switch back to Christian. We get a full picture of the rest of the night. So he was giving the eye to Quinn and stuff, but she talked to like his other friends and their girlfriends, right? And so then, after that, again, there wasn't too much interaction between the two, but they were giving each other the eyes. Well, of course, the Melody girl peeped all of this. She's pissed the rest of the night. She's ticked off. He decides he's ready to go. He never leaves early. He's like the life of the party. He closes the club, but he has a headache and he's just ready to get out of here. Well, Melody comes stomping after him and he asked her, when they got outside, do you want me to call you a car? And now she's really pissed. She's like, what the fuck? And then she's like, you're such a man whore and all this type of stuff. And I'm just kind of like, whoa, 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 whoa. You are trying to throw your pussy at him, right? Did he claim or did he act as if he wanted to fuck you a day or two ago? Yes. But when you got in front of him tonight, he didn't give you that same response and you kept throwing yourself at him. And now that you know you can't get him, now you want to go, he's a man whore? He's not fucking you and then leaving from you to go get, like, but you knew he was a whore. It's like, that's the thing with people. You already know what a person is, but when it doesn't benefit you, now it's a bad thing. He was a whore yesterday and you loved it because you wanted to fuck him. It's just like her response was just such a bitch response. I didn't like it. um it's not like you were going to be in a relationship. If you know about him, he don't do relationships, right? It's not like she's a new girl in the city and she doesn't know about this man. You fucking know about him. So my thing is, if he's giving you vibes that, bitch, I really don't want to fuck you no more, why are you still trying to push up on him? Why are you doing that? Why not just, you know what, okay, the energy's changed, cool, let me stop throwing my titties in his face and making suggestive comments to him because he's clearly not interested. But you go outside and there's paparazzi outside and you want to make a fucking debacle. Like, it's insane. I was just like, she was going to be a problem. That's what that tells me. Because when she doesn't get what she wants, she's an ass. So even if he hadn't have, been preoccupied thinking about somebody else, I'm glad he didn't fuck her because she clearly was a problem. And so he's just kind of like, whatever. So then he goes into the office on Monday. His dad tells him that they've hired a new PR firm and they need to give him more of a more respectability, because there was a photo of him in the press with the girl hitting him with her purse. So not only are you like verbally saying shit to him that's fucked up. Yeah, I mean, he is a man whore. That's fine, right? But then you want to hit him. You know what I mean? Like, get yourself together. You're upset because you didn't line up another dick. It's okay, right? But I'm not going to hit nobody with my purse or hit somebody because you put all your eggs in one basket. I mean, that's your fault. Like, come on. So he's got to go to a PR firm, and you know he tells Harlan, the dad tells Christian, they've put their top person on this, so you already know what's gonna happen. So we switch to our girl Quinn. Her and Walker, they are, well, I think she's gonna be by herself when they present to this person or whatever. But Walker's talking to her about the client, and telling her, it's the son of a CEO. He's being groomed to become the CEO in the future for the company. He's got a Playboy status. She's listening. She's listening. And then she says, wait a minute. Who's the client? And he goes, oh, Pierce Industries. And she goes, like, shit, in her head. Doesn't say it out loud. So now she knows he's coming in about 2 hours to her office. So they get her, up to speed on everything. She's now got a car to get her through the city. She can call down and have a car come and get her. She's got an assistant named Adam. So she's freaking out for a few reasons. This is a big deal, clearly, for the company, but also this is Christian. This is the guy that has been stuck on her mind for the last few days. So she's sitting in her office and she's, thinking it's going to be Walker coming in, but no, 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 no. It is our boy Christian Pierce. So we switch to Christian, and the thing that comes out of his mouth is no way when he sees her. They both have this moment of shock that they're seeing each other, and they clearly have an effect on one another, right? So she gets up from her desk, she shakes his hand, she says, we haven't formally been introduced. I'm Quinn Campbell. I'm going to help you. I'm going to help your professional image. And he's thinking, okay, I'm going to be professional. I got to get it together. But he's looking at her and it becomes too overwhelming. So the dude goes and locks the door, and then he goes right up to her and he starts kissing her and she kisses him right back. And it's so intense. Like, he feels like he's drowning. It feels like she wants more of him. He wants more of her. And he wants to know everything about her. And he's never felt that way. And so then her phone rings. It breaks the spell. And she's like, they're going to be sending up lunch soon, And he's like, okay. But the two of them are kind of looking, and it's like, okay, he figured out, oh my gosh, this is her first day. And I'm like, no shit, she just moved here. How could it not be her first day? But anyway, so in his head, he's like, this is going to make it more complicated. But the problem is, he wants her and she clearly wants him. They're eating their food, and she's thinking, while she's eating her salad, he's having his sandwich. And she asked him, are there any charity causes that, you're particular to? And she's like, we can maybe set up some press and get some great shots of you, X, Y, and Z. So he says there's some organizations he like to help with, and homelessness is one of those things, and something with research. And she asked him if there was anyone he would want to dedicate this to. And so he looked away for a moment, and then he said his mother. She passed away a few years ago. And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. So her parents are retired. They love to travel. They have their RV. That's their thing. But her, she knows she can call them whenever. So it's really sad for her to hear that, he's lost a parent. So after that, she's like, okay. She is seconds away from throwing herself at him. Like, she feels it. It's about to happen. She can see he's still hard in his pants. So it's just like, oh my gosh. So what she says, she just goes, thank you for coming in today, Mr. Pierce, and I'll see you on Wednesday. And so he grabs her and whispers in her ear, you'll see me before then. Do you think I'd ignore that? The kiss? And then he leaves. But boy, she wanted him to come back so bad. Our boy Christian left. His mind, he's just frazzled. He's like, what am I doing? Like, what was I thinking saying that to her? I'll see her before Wednesday. He's like, I'm a goner, but he feels like he needs to get to know her. Like, not secondhand nature, right? Like, not finding information out from other people, but he needs to hear it from her. Like, it's like this physical thing, but it's almost like it's physical, yes, but then it feels more. And it seems kind of mutual. He doesn't want to get her fired. He doesn't want something to happen to her, in regards to her job. But what he feels for her is just not normal, and he's got to figure out a way. So he's trying to tell himself he's going to do his 3 date rule, you know, but he's like, I'm not even supposed to be dating her. So now he's thinking, I'll see her in secret, you know. But then his thing is, if I start doing that, I'll get close to her, and then she's gonna find out my secret, and I can't have anybody find that out. Now we don't know what the secret is. Apparently it's something that's gonna rock everything, and yet he knows he can't turn away from her. He's like, I know I'm gonna get burned, but at this point, I just can't help it. Quinn gets home, and of course she's still reeling from that kiss. She was about to go to her bed and get herself off, but then Carolyn comes home, and we find out she decided to quit her job today. So she works for a media production company, but what she really wants to do is open a boutique, which is going to be about a couple blocks from where they currently live. So her thing is, she wants a career in fashion. That's the passion, so she's going after it. Now, the beauty of having a trust fund is exactly this type of thing. Like, if she fails, she's got something to fall back on. She can always go back to media production. It's not a big deal. But that's awesome that she's able to really do something that she's passionate about. I think that's really neat. So they celebrate. She does not tell her about what happened with Christian. A couple of reasons. Carolyn's part of his friend group, and she doesn't know if he would want her all in his business like that. Like, you could be friends, but you don't necessarily tell your friend every single thing. Like, there's certain people you may tell more to. So I get that. Makes sense. And also, it's like this little secret she has for herself. I get that too. So the next day, well, let me say this first. They celebrate that night by eating Chinese and watching movies. So the next day she goes to work. She's thinking about him, of course, all day. She's thinking like, okay, is he going to reach out to me? She couldn't stop thinking about him, right? Then she's like, you know what? He was probably just talking shit. She's used to rich guys saying one thing and doing something else. But then when she gets off work, there's a car waiting outside for her. And it is Lewis. And he says, Mr. Pierce sent me to pick you up. She's like, let me see some ID. So he shows his ID, but she's still like, how do I know you work for him? So he calls Christian. And he says, Pierce, Miss Campbell would like to speak to you to make sure you sent the car. So she takes the phone, and he says, come to me right now. That's all he says. And she gets in that fucking car and she goes. Christian's flipping out. He's still wondering if she's going to really come. Like, he knows she got in the car, but he's kind of like, what if she changed her mind on her way there? So he's kind of going back and forth. He's also worried about this secret that we still don't know about. Finally, she arrives and they just stare at each other. And he can see her breathing kind of hitch. And her cheeks are pink. He pulls her into the apartment. And we also found out a couple things. He's got 2 places. So where he is right now is on the Upper East Side. That's his fuck pad. And then in Midtown, that's his like actual home. So, this is where he brings people. It doesn't tell too much about him. Feels more like a hotel. There's monogram towels and things like that with his initial, but it's still, again, it's not giving anything personal. So he also felt like if he brought her here, then you know what, I can treat her like I do everyone else, right? Because this place signifies that this doesn't mean anything. Chabu, that did not work. So he pulls her inside and they unleash on each other, and she's the one who starts kissing him. And it's even more intense than the passionate kiss they shared in the office, and he realizes he's a fucking goner. So we switch back to Quinn, and her nerves that she's going through on the drive there. And she, of course, is doing the whole should I not. Um, the thing about it is, you know, this is her job, right? Like, if her job finds out about this is going to be a real problem. But there is something about him that just pulls her to where it's like she needs to experience this, you know? And so when she gets there, um she goes in for the kill. She's ready for him. So he takes her to the bed. He strips in front of her and she's looking at him like, "Oh my god, I don't even know if he's going to fit inside of me." And she's telling him, "Please," like she's begging him. And she's like, "I just need you inside of me." And it's something she's wanted to be claimed by someone and wanting to be tamed. And as he say to her, like, "You're like I'm gonna tame you," and all this type of stuff, it's making her wetter. And it just does something to her. She's fantasized about this. She's never told anyone about this. It's the fantasy, right? And it's like he knows her fantasy. So he puts both of her hands above her head, and then he just slams into her, and girl is just in pure euphoria. We switch back to Christian. Um, our girl Quinn is insatiable, and he loves it because he can't get enough of her either. They did it a couple of times, and then afterwards, she's like, "Maybe we should talk about what just happened." And he's like, "Why do we need to talk about it?" She says, "Because it might be best if we end this right now." And he's like, "We can, but we're not going to." And she's like, "But my job." And he's like, "You're not going to lose your job. You know?" He's like, "Don't worry about it." And she's just like, how could I not worry about it? He's like, "Because I'm not going to let that happen to you." And so he's like, "Have dinner with me." And so he's going to order up some food. And she's like, "Are you asking me out on a date?" He's like, "Yeah, but we're going to eat here." Because again, they can't really be out in public like that on a real date. They can't. So she takes a shower. He joins her. 20 minutes later, food arrives. She's eating, and he starts asking questions. And so he says, Tell me what brings you to New York, especially after that first day you had, right?" And she said, "I could say something different, but I hate when people lie about stupid shit." So she told him the truth. "My fiance cheated on me with my best friend, and I want to get the hell out of Colorado." And thankfully, Carolyn, wanted a roommate. And he admits, like, "You know what, I think it was affecting her not having Jess around anymore, and she didn't want to admit to it. So it is a good thing for both of you. So she sees his tattoo. It's on his chest. He starts to freak out a little bit because, see, normally when the women come over, it's in the dead of night. He's just before, you know, they are dressed, and they never see him, right? But it's daytime and she's seeing it. Of course, he's not ready to talk about it. Um, but he's just kind of like, "Let's go back to bed." And she says, I'll race you. I want to know what this secret is so bad. So Queen comes home. Carolyn's on the couch. She's like, "What the hell?" Because it's almost midnight. She was worried about her. So she's got a bunch of clothes and stuff out because her opening is going to be in like a week. Again, when you got money, you can move that timeline to whatever you want it to be. You can make that shit happen. So she's like, were you working late?" And she's like, "No." She's like, "Well, then where were you?" She's like, okay, she's got to tell somebody at this point. She doesn't have a sister. Her former best friend is not an option anymore. She's bursting to tell somebody. She tells her, "I was at Christian Pierce's house." And she's like, "Oh my gosh." She's like, "Don't tell me you slept with him." She's like, "I did." She's like, "Oh my gosh." She's like, "But you got to be careful. Um, she's like, "He is your client. That's an issue. Like, couldn't this get you fired?" And she's like, "I know, but I just couldn't help it." you know? And so she's like, I did pick up on something between the two of you when we were at Purple Swan. She's like, just be careful, and she told her, Quinn's like, listen, don't worry, I will. She's like, I know his reputation. I get it. Um, and so then she tells Carolyn about the tattoo, and she's like, he got kind of weird. And he tried to play it off, but I noticed it. And so Carolyn was like, did you read his file? And she's like, no. She's like, well, I'll go ahead and tell you. She's like, he had a twin brother named Elijah, and he apparently died of an overdose. And they had got matching tattoos the week that he died. They, of course, before he died, they had got the matching tattoos, which is their Pierce crest, with their initial in it. So they had just turned 18, and she's like, oh, that's what happened. And so she's like, yeah, like, she went to boarding school with them, so she's known them for a very long time. And so it's like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. Good grief. So it's the next day. This is Wednesday, their actual meeting in the office. And Christian is like fighting everything in himself. He wants her so bad. But she's being professional. She's going over the itinerary of what's going to be done. He's going to be giving her giving a donation in his mother's name. At the mission, I think it's mission something, where they're going to feed the homeless and things like that. And he's going to be there to serve dinner. And she's like, I need to tell you something. And he's like, what? She's like, I read your file and I found out about your brother. He starts to kind of get upset because he's thinking that she wants him to use his brother as a way to boost his image. And she's like, I would never do that. She's like, I just wanted to let you know that I knew about it. I had talked to Carolyn and told her that we, went on a date, if you want to call it that. And then he was just kind of like, oh, okay, that's no problem. And she's like, she told me about what happened, and I just wanted to let you know. And he's like, okay, cool, that's fine. But in my mind, I don't know, because I get his reaction, though, especially if he thought she was trying to use that, and that's not something he's comfortable with. I get that, I do. I get it. It's a subject that I'm sure, especially with what happened, I'm sure he would want to talk about it. So I totally get that. That makes perfect sense. But then in his mind, he's thinking she's getting too close to the secret. Like, that secret can't get out. And he realizes, like, if that secret comes out, it could destroy them. But he realizes also very quickly he is falling in love with Quinn. They're at the Bowery mission, and he's a natural. He really is. It almost appears to her like he's two different people. Like, he's got that playboy persona, and then she's watching him with people, and he is so kind and so loving. It's just like, is this the same person? So they get some good shots, and then she tells the photographer, okay, that's good. We've gotten what we needed. We're good. And so they leave. They wait outside for him, and when he comes up, he's gonna make an announcement, actually. And she had called the press anonymously, so it can look spontaneous, but clearly it's not. So he comes out, and she tells him how amazing he was in there, and she said, it's almost like you were a different person. He stiffs up. So she's like, did I say something wrong? He's like, no, it's okay. But she knows something's off. She's like, I didn't mean it in a bad way. I just meant like you were really great in there. You were really great with the people. And he's like, oh. He's like, I know what you meant. And then on her part, she feels like, okay, did I just do something that just made things out of control? Like, what is going on, you know? We also find out that back in Colorado, she's getting daily updates every day about what's going on with the house, but it's like everything keeps getting stalled. Like, at this point, she's willing to sell it at a loss, but she really can't afford that. She doesn't have those kind of savings, right? It's decent, but it's not that good. So she's just kind of got to bear through it, right? So we also find out that her and Derek used to travel a lot. And I don't know if it was her house or their house together. I don't know. I don't think they mentioned if what was the situation with that. But she just wants this squared away really soon because she really wants those links to Colorado to just really be severed at this point. They leave from the event. They get in his car. He lasts about 20 seconds before he grabs her and pulls her into his lap. They start kissing, and he wants to go back to his place. And she's like, I can't. I told Carolyn I would meet her, and we'd have drinks after this. And he's like, okay. She's like, maybe tomorrow? He's like, all right. So they drop her off, and then he goes to the Purple Swan. And he doesn't go to his normal tables. He like goes to like have dinner alone, like a more private spot. And he sees his friend Jax and his wife Kate, and we find out they're expecting. So he is excited for them, and they're like telling him like, yeah, you got that promotion, like great, great job, X, Y, and Z. So they're happy for him, and so they're like, well, we'll see you around. Not as much here. So they leave and they go to their table to have dinner, and he looks at them kind of with envy because he wants that with Quinn. And now he's got to figure out a way to try and have that with her. So we switch back to Quinn's POV, and it's the craziest thing. It's like he's now being distant with her. He's not having sex with her. He's texting her. He's asking her questions about herself, like, were you an only child? Where did you grow up? She grew up in Michigan. She's an only child. What are your parents like? Like all these different things, and she's answering them. At the same time, she's getting really frustrated because it's like, okay, why won't he just like come over? You know what I mean? But it's like he's not inviting her over. And when she tries to shift the conversation towards the sexy talk, he backs away. And she just doesn't understand what the heck is going on. And so she decides, okay, like this is it. It's been 3 weeks. She's had it. And at this point, she's decided to let him know after watching him. She's seen articles about him coming out of the Swan. She's seen one with him with the Melody. It doesn't really look like they're together, but she's not up. She does feel a ting of jealousy, even though she knows they're not together. But she also knows, you know what? There's nothing I can do about that. If that's what he wants to do, that's what he's gonna do. Now, as intense as her connection is with him, I love the fact that that is her reaction to him, right? Like, yeah, it felt a certain way, but he's backing off. So something's up. I'm gonna give him the space. Not trying to blast him and go all crazy on him. You know what I mean? It's just like, okay, if it's different, it's different, and we just accept it. I like that. Right there, I was like, Quinn's so much better. And the fact that Melody is still hanging around, because I don't think he went there with her. It doesn't appear that way, you know? So it's just kind of like, okay, if you're still trying, it seems like you're still trying to be around the very person that you did this whole debacle in front of. Just, ugh. But anyway, I digress. She sends him a text message saying, I'm done. Like, I'm not doing this anymore with you. And he says, me either. Open your front door. So she goes, opens, he's there. Carolyn is knocked out sleep. She's been putting in really long days at the boutique. She hasn't hired anyone yet. So, poor girl. So anyway, she's like, come to my room. He comes to her room and he tells her like, I want to be with you. She like, huh? He's like, serious, like I want to be with you. And he's like, I just had to like get myself together. That's why he was doing that. He's like, he has a 3-date rule, right? And then he's done, and he didn't want to do that with her. So that's why, even though he hasn't seen her, he's been texting her and having conversation with her to learn more about her. And she's like, "Are we done playing this game?" And he's like, "We're done." And so then they start kissing. So they, of course, have a nice hot kiss. He strips, she strips, he eats her pussy. Then they have a nice hard fuck. And when they wake up, um, her phone rings. So she gets up and he sees her shoulder slump. And he's out of the bed in a second at her side. What's going on? What's wrong? She goes, "My house in Colorado just burned to the ground." He's like, "Are you okay?" She's like, "I'm fine." She's like, "I'm free. I'm truly free of it." And so they get back in bed and she said something that he couldn't hear. And he said, "What?" And she said, "I love you." And he said back to her, "I love you too, Quinn." Like he knows this is crazy, but I guess he said, he tired. He's just going to dive in head first. Fuck it. Later that day, she's, between setting up stuff for Christian, you know, taking phone calls about the house, dealing with the insurance. She's a little exhausted, but she is so stuck on the fact that she's like, he said he loved her. He said it back. She's like, she doesn't know if he's going to say it again. Um, but hey, she said what she said. And so the issue with the house is that it should be settled within the next 30 to 60 days. It's going to pay off her mortgage and then she'll get like a small amount. She doesn't care. At least she's free of it. Um, it's not a burden anymore. And that's priceless to her. So she comes home and what does she do? They're texting because Christian had an event that night. And so he tells her, what did he tell her? No, this is what happened. Since he's at his event, she's talking to Carolyn. And she tells Carolyn what happened. And Carolyn is like, "Oh my gosh." And she's like, "I don't know. He doesn't go to women's like places. Like he doesn't do that." You know? And she also asks her, "Are you afraid of getting fired?" And she's like, "I'm terrified." She's like, "But we're going to keep everything a secret." She's like, "I know he's a playboy. I know he's a womanizer, but there's just something there. And I just got to see what it is." But, old girl was just kind of like, you never know, girl. You might be the one. Shit. Especially when he doing stuff so out of character. You never know. We switched to Christian's POV. And so from that morning that he stayed the night, he creeps out of her apartment. Lewis comes, picks him up. And he's on cloud nine. You know, he can't help but think about her. He starts to think about the night that changed everything for him. He knows eventually he's going to have to tell her about that. And that his brother, of course, what did he say? Something. His brother, he couldn't find his brother at first. He was like drunk, but not drunk drunk. He had like a couple shots and had been drinking cheap beer. But he went looking for his brother. Everyone was passed out. So it's like the end of the party. And he checked the different rooms. He saw some people passed out. And then he went to the last room and his brother was there crumpled over white. And then Lewis said something to him which snaps him out of the memory. And then he thinks of Quinn and that warms his insides. And he wants to show her his real home. He also has a place in the Hamptons. He wants to show her that, not just, that cold apartment that, they initially fucked in. So we switch back to Quinn. And she, of course, is, during her daydreaming too about her boo. She gets a text message from him saying, "Run away with me." And she's like, "Okay, you know? And she's like, "Okay, but what do you mean run away with you?" And he's like, "Come downstairs." He's like, "You can't work late." He's like, "I'm not going to let you work late. It's Friday night." So she's like, "Is that an order?" And he's like, "Yes." And she kind of likes that. So then he sends a message, "Don't linger, my love." And it's kind of like, okay, it's not "I love you," but it's pretty close. And so she loves it. So she goes downstairs. He kisses her, and then he hits the button to put up the partition, and they kiss again. And then he tells her he's taking her on a trip. She doesn't need any clothes. And she's like, "How far is it?" He says 2 hours, and then they go back to kissing. So then we switch back to Christian's POV. He puts her on her back. He starts eating her pussy. She comes, and then he starts fingering her. She comes again. Then he pulls her on his lap, and she's like ready to take all of him. And so she takes off his belt, and then, pulls his thing out, and in one scoop, she sits on it. They have a hard fuck, and then he what happened? No, she was about to come on his dick, but right before she was about to come, she got off of him, got on her knees, and let him come in her mouth. And he was like, "Oh my God," like he was a goner. And all she could say was fuck because it was just so hot. So he's thinking, when they get to the Hamptons, it's time for him to really open up. So they get to his place in the Hamptons, and we find out this is the place that his mom really loved. His dad had wanted to sell it after their divorce, but he convinced his dad keep it. And then when he got his inheritance at 25, he bought it. And so they pull up, and this is not a cottage. This is a freaking mansion. So he gives her a tour, introduces her to the chef, the house manager, takes her around, and this is a lot more personal. As big as this place is, it's giving more of him. He keeps journals. She, of course, is like, "Oh my gosh, Christian, you have a diary." And he's like, "No, I have journals. And then the chef is going to bring their meal up and in about an hour. And so she's like, "How long do we have?" He's like, 15 minutes. So she rips off her tank top. She's ready to go. They have a nice, hard, quick fuck. And then afterwards, he wants her to know um, that what he said the other night, like he meant it. He's like all in. And she's like, "I am too." She's in it, you know? She's like, "I know it's fast. I know it doesn't make sense, but I feel it too." So she's looking at the tattoo on his chest, but she could tell it's the family, looks like a family crest. Um, but she doesn't, it looks a little different to her because if you look at it, it, you know, there's a letter in there, but it's not C. So she's like, huh. And so he kind of let her know he wants to tell her all his secrets and stuff like that. He doesn't, he lets her know he hasn't been fucking with anybody else since he met her. And that the place on the Upper East Side, it is his fuck pad. He has his real places in Midtown. And he tells her, "I'll take you whenever you want to go." He says he owns multiple properties in the city. If she wants to go to all of them, he'll take her. You know? He just wants to give her, honesty. And he feels like he can trust her. She says, "I feel like I can trust you." And he flinches. And it's just like a half a second, but she catches it. And she's kind of like, "Why do you do that?" And he, of course, brushes it off um, because then we got to go into deeper what's going on. And he's not ready to do that at this very moment. They spend the weekend enjoying each other, having conversation. He had brought clothes there for her. Everything was prepared by Rosemary, the house manager. Um, he wanted her to have anything she needed for those couple of days that they were going to be there. We get a little flashback and we find out that his brother wanted to be out and outside, always outside, right? And he would be out for a minute and then he would want to go in his room and read. And his dad has always told him that he was like his mother and that basically he didn't have the gumption to want to conquer the world. And then she opens up about Derek and how, that he was living with her. So that was her house. And that the hardest thing for her was the fact that he lied to her for so long. This, of course, makes his stomach flop, right? And then she's like, "But I'm done with liars." So he knows he's got to come clean. Oh my gosh, I just want to know what he did. I want to know. I have an inkling possibly, but I'm going to hold back my theory. I hope it's not something awful like he killed his brother, right? I hope it's not anything like that. Because I don't that's a little too much. So I hope. So we fast forward about 4 days after the weekend. Christian comes over in the evenings, and some of the nights they even have wine with Carolyn, and she still hasn't been to his real place in Midtown just yet. So they're at an event. It's a fundraising event, and she's thinking about the conversation that she had that morning with Carolyn. So Carolyn was like, "There's something different about him, you know." And she's like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "I don't know just yet, but there's something different." And she's like, "I don't know. Maybe he's just finally grown up. I just can't put my finger on it." And she says, "Well, if you think about what it is, you let me know." She's like, "No, I promise you I will. I promise." So, Christian's at this event. Um, so is our girl, Quinn. And he's ready to go. And then a guy named Greg Matthews walks up and he goes, "Hey, Elijah Pierce." And he's like, "Where's Christian? Where's Chris?" And it's like he has to tell the guy Eli died 10 years ago. And he's like, "Oh, I didn't know." So the guy had, I guess, his family, they moved away before he died. So the guy had no idea. And so after that, he's like, "We can exchange numbers X, Y, and Z. We'll catch up before you leave," because the guy lives in California. And so he's here on some type of venture, personal or business, we don't know. So after that, he agrees with Quinn, like, okay, like, he's ready to go now. Like, we can get up out of here. And so he tells her, "We're going to go to my penthouse." They leave out of there. They head to Midtown. They're going to his real place. Of course, it's huge. He gives her a tour. And he's decided, okay, one more night. He just wants one more night because he's so afraid once he tells her the truth, it's going to blow everything up. And he just wants one more perfect night with her. And so after tonight, he's going to do it. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, hurry up. I need to know. So they have a nice heart buck. And then afterwards, they fall asleep. She wakes up, goes in the den, which is like a library, curls up in this really cozy chair. She sees a journal. And it looks like the journals that she saw at the cottage. The cottage mansion is what we're going to call it. It's a mansion, but we'll call it the cottage mansion. And she knows she shouldn't read it, but she does. She opens it. It's the most neatest handwriting that she has ever saw. Doesn't fit this party animal of Christian. And so then she's like, "I need to close it. I need to stop." And when she's about to close it, it's on the last page and it says, "What have I done? I have to be him forever, forever, forever." And so she starts thinking back to all the little signs. Him being uncomfortable when bringing up a memorial about his brother. The way he reacted when she said, "You're a different person." The Greg Matthews guy calling him Elijah. And the way he responded. And then she's thinking about that tattoo. And if you look at it, you see a letter that is not C, but it's actually the letter E. Christian, and this is going to be the last time I think I say Christian, okay? He wakes up. He sees a light coming from the den. And he's thinking she's probably just reading a good book or looking at his different titles, but it's too quiet. Ever since he walked in on his brother, it freaks him out when he goes into a room and it's too quiet. And that's understandable based on what he found. So he opens the door and he knows that she knows. He sees the journal. It's on the last page. She, of course, is like, "What is this? Tell me this is some type of teenage joke that you did 10 years ago. You were having a bad day. You wrote this. Tell me what this is." And she says, show me your chest. Show me your tattoo. So he just opens his shirt, shows it. She sees the E. She's like, why would you do this? What is going on? And so basically, what happened is when he found his brother, he did not want to live with the fact that his father didn't particularly care for him because he was so different. And so he figured it would be better if he just assumed the identity of Christian so that his father did not lose the child that he loved the most. That, I mean, this is my thing. Do you know what you have to say and do around a fucking kid for them to believe that you love that kid more than me, to the point to where I know that if that kid dies, you wouldn't be able to take it. Like, that would affect you more than if I left. You know, that's gotta be awful, you know? Just awful. And the fact he's going to be a constant reminder that the one you wanted, they're not here anymore because they're fucking twins. Ugh, that's just so sad. That is just so sad. Um, but anyway, she of course is upset. She of course tells him, you know, we're done, and he realizes he's lost her forever. She grabs all her stuff. She runs out. The doorman's like, "Can I get you a cab?" Um, she has her phone, but it's like in her stuff, and she's not gonna look through her stuff. So she's like, "Yeah, please give me a cab." She's looking back to see if Christian is following her, but it's not Christian anymore. I gotta stop saying that. It's Elijah. It's Eli, right? And no one's coming. She waits outside. Then she starts thinking about maybe not waiting outside. She thinks about that cab driver. What if he sees her and wants revenge? All this kind of stuff. On top of, why would he do this? You know, why did he assume the identity? Even though he told her, it doesn't seem like enough of a reason to her. It's like, why would you do something like this, you know? And then she's thinking like, oh my gosh, what if he killed his brother? Then she's thinking like, oh my gosh, I've been sleeping with a murderer. Like, she is freaking out. And here's my thing. Y'all have only been dealing with each other for a few weeks. A secret that he has kept for over 10 years. I want to know why you feel you would find that out in a couple of weeks. And the truth was, she was going to find out because he was going to tell her the next day. She was going to find out. But you went snooping where you shouldn't have, and you found out that way. I personally don't believe that the response would have been different if he would have told her. I think that is too much of a shocking revelation for someone to be able to process better because you told me. I don't buy that. I think it's the shock of what's happened, and you're trying to figure out a way to say he could have did it better. But again, how do you do something like that better? I just don't see how. It looks crazy because you've been assuming the identity of a dead person. It's crazy. Like, there's no way for her not to look at that and think that way. However, feeling like he's lying to you, bitch, you've been lying to everybody. You know, like, you're not exempt. Like, everybody thought he was this other person that's known him his whole life. So I don't know, but her mind's going on in all kind of crazy directions. She's gonna call in sick tomorrow because she's like, there is no way she can sit across from him in a meeting. Later that morning, she calls in to work sick. Carolyn comes in and is like, are you the only one that's sick, or is it everyone in your office? And she can't tell her the whole truth. Um, and my thing is, you see how hard it is for you to tell someone something? So can you imagine somebody living that lie for 10 years? You know? It's like, come on. I'm just saying. So she does tell Carolyn that her and Christian are over. Um, She tells her, I'm so sorry. She's got tabs all over the city at different restaurants. She's like, order whatever you want, but we're going to have fun. I'm not going to let you wallow in this forever. And so she leaves. And of course, she's got all these thoughts in her head. She's trying to figure out if, she can't call him. She feels she's not ready for that. But she wants to know, how could he go this long deceiving everybody? And then, of course, what else is he lying about? Did he even mean what he said to her when he said how he felt? Um, it just feels like a betrayal that's even worse than the one that Derek did. Um, okay. I don't know if I agree with that. This is a big deal, and I'm not saying that it's not. It is. It's a big deal. But again, you just started with this man, and let's say he was going to tell you at 4 weeks. That's still a lot better than the people that have known him for over 10 years and didn't know. You were going to find out. He was going to tell you. Um, the fact that your best friend was fucking your fiance, nah, I think it hurts you because the affection lies with Christian, right? So any pain that comes from that is going to feel more severe. But girl, don't get it twisted. Nah, baby, what Derek did to you was a hell of a lot worse. I'm sorry. Especially being that we don't know all the details as to why he did this, right? So, well, he was starting to tell her, but she didn't want to listen. So, I'm just saying. Poor Elijah. He's been in hell damn near a week. That Friday they were supposed to have a meeting. So he figured I'll talk to her at the meeting, but then he got the call that she had called in sick. And so he's just decided, okay, he's just going to go back to his penthouse, and he's been getting drunk ever since. And so his housekeeper, Sarah, pretty much forced his ass up and was like, no, you got to get up. So she's like a no nonsense type of mom, right? She's raised 6 kids. She's like, you need to get your ass up. It's time to get up, take a shower, and go to work. It's almost noon. So Carolyn keeps Quinn busy too, but it doesn't stop the pain, of course, but it does help just a little bit. But she goes in Monday morning, and again, this is her only client. So you got to remember, everything she's going to do in her job will be about him. And so it's extremely difficult for her. She has lunch with Carolyn, and she was about to tell her because Carolyn was like, well, did he cheat on you? And she was like, no. And she's like, well, if it wasn't that, I mean, is it really something that you just can't forget? Like, forgive? She's right. She's like, can you not see yourself with him for the rest of your life? And if you can see your life without him, then fine, great. Go on about your business. But if you can't see your life without him, then maybe it's worth a second shot. So he goes into the office. His dad wants to speak with him, and his dad is like, don't make this a habit coming in to work late. And he says it's not a habit unless I do it twice. I was like, oh my gosh, look at him being all slick. And then the dad was telling him how proud he was of him, that how he's been doing when it comes to no tabloid issues these past 3 weeks. And he's like, I need to call over there to HRM and give that guy a raise. And he says it wasn't a he, it was a she, Quinn Campbell. And he's like, oh, okay. So he was thinking that the father was thinking he had gotten someone in his life on a more permanent basis, which technically is what happened. But he can't tell his dad that because he's not trying to, get her in trouble in spite of everything that went down, right? She shouldn't, lose her job because she found out the secret, right? So he feels like he's about to explode, and he saw this like something in his dad's eyes, but he couldn't make it out. And I'm wondering if the dad fucking knows. Cause that is kind of fucked up if you don't know your kids. I don't give a fuck if they are twins. Bitch, you ought to know them apart. So I wonder if the dad has always known. I don't know. I could be wrong. I don't know, but I just wonder if that's the case. It is the day of her 10 o'clock meeting with Elijah, even though she's still saying Christian. He comes in there super professional. She says, "Hi, Mr. Pierce." He says, "Hi, Miss Campbell." She gives him the schedule for the upcoming week, asks if there were any changes that needed to be done. He said, "No, this looks fine." She says, "Well, then I don't want to waste any more of your time." She stands up and she goes to shake his hand. He shakes her hand. He walks to the door and he said this and did the whole demonstrating between the two of them. He said, "It isn't over." And then he walked out. We switched to Elijah's POV, and he pretty much was like, even though they're still calling the name, because they do the chapters by the character's name, they're still saying Christian, but bitch, I'm gonna call him Elijah because that's his name. Elijah, or I'm gonna say Eli. So he's determined to get her back. He can see that there's still fire between them. And he's not letting her go. He's gonna fight for this, even if it causes him 1,000 issues. He's gonna do it. So he's hired a lawyer, and he's gonna get the ball rolling on his plan. And I'm like, oh Lord, what is this plan gonna be? So Quinn texts Carolyn and says, he was just here for a meeting. They're doing their back and forth via text, and Carolyn's like, do you just want closure, really? Because if you don't want him, if you don't want anything to do with him, like, why are you rushing to tell me what happened at this meeting? You know? And I don't think she wants closure. I think she wants him back. And her messaging her friend like that lets you know she does, right? But then she decides she wants more for herself. Because at first she's thinking like, I do want to know what's going to happen. But then she's like, no, I'm tired of this. I want more for myself in my career. So she goes to talk to Walker to let him know that she wants bigger. And he, of course, is telling her, how great of a job she's doing on the Pierce account. And she tells him, I want bigger. And she's like, he's like, well, the only bigger place is our biggest office, which is in London. And she's like, then that's what I want. Now, this is my thing. If this is what you really want, if the whole goal is to move forward in your career, X, Y, and Z, great. But we can't make this a pattern of running away from cities when shit don't work out with some guy. You can't make it a pattern, because you're going to go to London, you'll meet someone there, and if the shit don't work out, where you going to go then? You don't want to go back to Colorado. You're not going to go back to New York. So, I understood it in the beginning. It made sense. The new start. Okay, great. Girl, it ain't even been a fucking month. That's not a real opportunity to me. So she's operating out of pain and anxiousness, and it's making her, this is a rash decision. This isn't well thought out of at all, to me. We switch to Elijah. He's about to give a press conference, and he had planned on doing this a little further down the road, but he got a text message from Carolyn the previous night saying that, listen, I don't know what happened between the two of you. I don't want any details unless you want to share. But she's trying to transition to the London office, and that transfer can go through in a matter of weeks. And I just want to give you a heads up. He shoots her back, thanks for the heads up. And so now he's with his lawyer, Frank. Frank is saying to him, are you sure you want to do this? He says, yep. So then he calls Quinn through her office at HRM. Adam patches him through. And he tells her, open up a new tab on your browser and go to ABC7. And so she does. And she's like, what are you doing? Like, we haven't got anything scheduled, anything planned. And he says, I'm telling the truth, and hangs up the phone. So he gets in front of the media. This is a press conference, and tells them, my name is Elijah Pierce, and I had assumed the identity of my brother Christian, who passed away of an overdose 10 years ago. And before he could say anything else, they're erupting with questions. We switch back to Quinn, and she shoots out of that office. So after he makes that announcement, cabs are taking too long, it's too busy, so she winds up walking. Well, I'm sorry, running about 5 blocks. She's screaming his name, Christian, Christian. The lawyer sees her. He nudges Christian, aka Elijah, and he starts coming towards her. She runs to him, she hugs him and kisses him, and he's just like, I did it for you, I did it for you. And she's like, I know, I love you, I love you. Well, now he's got to go tell Papa Pierce. And so Quinn walks up with him, but she stays outside of the office. He goes in, and his dad is smiling at him with tears in his eyes. And he says, Welcome back, Eli. And he realizes his dad knew the whole time. He's like, Why didn't you say anything? He said, How could you? He's like, why didn't you say anything? And his dad says, How could you think that I wouldn't know you're my son? He's like, I knew. But I also knew that it felt like something you needed to do. And selfishly for me, it was a way of having both of my sons. He was like, I would be tempted to say something to you different times, but then as time went on, it just seemed like something you needed to figure out for yourself. It was your way of dealing with your grief over your brother. And Eli says, you always liked him more. And he said it wasn't that. It's just that I was an asshole when I was growing up, when I was younger. And I just wanted you to be able to enjoy things the way me and your brother did. But it wasn't that I loved him more. Nothing like that. So they hug and laugh and cry, and they say they probably need therapy and all this type of stuff. And the dad was like, yeah, I probably, yeah, they know they need it, because this is some crazy shit. So the dad says prices are going to shoot up with all the press coverage. And he tells his dad, remember when you asked me if I had met someone? I'd like for you to meet someone. When they come out, she's kind of shocked to see them laughing and finds out that the dad knew. We fast forward 3 months. Harlan and Eli, they've been going to therapy. And I'm like, good, because both of y'all asses needed it. She, of course, got canned by HRM. But Harlan created the position for her, the same position at Pierce Industries. The same position she was at HRM. She's now at Pierce Industries, so it worked out perfectly. She did make Harlan take her through the interview process. But listen, she's great at her job, so it was a no-brainer. They're about to do a press conference to talk about how there's not going to be any charges against him. He's been cleared. The identity theft thing, it's not issue. But also, I didn't mention how he did it, because I was like, well, how did he do that? What happened was, when he found his brother, what he did is he switched their IDs, and that's why it would be like identified as that's the one that died. So I'm like, still, that's a lot. But anyway, Harlan was supposed to make a speech as well, but he doesn't. He stays back. And so she's kind of looking at him like, what's going on? So when she goes up to the podium near Eli, he starts talking, and she realizes it's a proposal. So he tells her how much he loves her, gives her the diamond ring with sapphires. Very unconventional but beautiful. It was perfect for her. She, of course, says yes. She still has a hard time calling him Eli, because she wants to keep calling him Christian, but she's getting used to it, and that is how it ends. So again, remember I said this was a part of a series. So these are a group of like billionaire guys. They all go to the Purple Swan, and this is like all of theirs. They've been friends for years, and so each book is their story. So if you want to know more about the others, you can. It's there. But I thought this was a really good one, and I enjoyed it. There was a prologue that to me, kind of felt like it gave it away, and so that's why I didn't want to put that part in there. But in the very beginning of the book, it talks about when they got their tattoos and how Eli was the more reserved one, Christian was the most outgoing one, and that Christian was the one that got the tattoo first, and then kind of sucked Eli into doing it. And Eli thought it did look cool, when he saw it finished. And then he knew that his brother dabbled in a lot more than just alcohol. He had seen his eyes glazed over a few times, so he knew it was something a lot stronger he was doing. When he asked him about it, he denied it. So when I first started reading it, I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to mention that part, because is that them telling us what happened? And then I kind of wondered, okay, did Christian maybe change some things about himself or not? Or did Eli, it could have been Eli just got drunk and, and or just over, like, tried something and did it incorrectly or something. So that's why I just kind of left that out. Left more of a mystery, and I like that, and I like finding out what happened. Again, I mean, I hate to say she overreacted, but I still kind of feel like she did, because I feel like the expectation, it was so soon in the relationship, and I do feel like you do need to give people time to reveal certain things to you. Everyone isn't going to come out the gate. It's a difference if you've been together for a minute and then they don't tell you certain stuff, but all he needed was one more day, and she would have known more about him than everyone else had. So I don't know. I really liked it though. What did you guys think? Let me know. Drop down in the comment section and let me know. Um, any suggestions you all have, drop those down. I will see them, and I can look into those books as well. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I will have those links down below in the description section. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. As always, I truly do thank you all for your support, and thank you so much for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.